Hi, welcome back to the channel. I'm Michelle, and today I'm going to be sharing what my family will be using for our Advent study for the 2023 year. Like past years, I use the same resource. It's the ELCA World Hunger Advent Study. There is a Advent calendar, little punch outs, and then an Advent study for your family as well. Like I said, I've used this for as long as I can remember with my entire family. So my kids are 10, 7, and almost 4. So I'm going to start with the Advent calendar. So I think this is a great resource, and I think there's a lot of denominational resources out there. I see a lot of people share different kind of like Advent studies or unit studies, and they pay for them. I think there's a plethora of free resources out there you don't necessarily need to be paying for. And these are all free resources. You can order them online. They'll be shipped to you for free. I ordered mine. It came within a week. Or you can choose to download them and print them or use them on your computer screen. That's also an option as well. But again, I haven't been impressed with a lot of Advent studies I've seen. A lot of them are very cookie cutter, and I prefer to use resources that I know where the information's coming from, that the people who are writing, especially like the Advent study, have degrees in theology and know what they're talking about. I don't want someone to just pick up a unit study, write it, and say, here you go. I prefer accredited resources, and this is what I use. So this is the Advent calendar, and I do this especially with my kids, and you can see there's little boxes, and they're just little, you can see this was one, so you just open it, it's just little, like a thicker cardboard. So sometimes they will have a prayer, as you can see here, with the hands, a prayer. Sometimes it will be a verse reading. Sometimes it will be, since this is associated with the World Hunger, you can buy different gifts during the holiday season, like a cow for a family, prenatal resources for someone, school supplies for the ELC World Hunger. So I'll tell you different things, like this one talks about how a family farm can provide a lifetime of food to eat and sell at the market. So it gives you a link to where you can find those information. That is one thing we do every year in my family for all the adult gifts, like sisters, brothers. We do donations in their name, and you can get a little ornament or even a little card. Again, these are free resources saying that this was made in your honor. This gift was made in your honor. I think that's a really good thing to be doing because, one, it makes Christmas shopping a lot easier. And two, I think as adults, we have a lot of opportunity to buy the things we need. We don't need another candle or another pair of fuzzy socks. We can use some of our resources that we have to help those in need, because ultimately I think that's what this season is about helping those in need and thinking of others, not just of ourselves. So that is something my family really enjoys doing. Another thing that is often in here is hymns. And it will give you a part of the hymn. And usually what we will do is we will go online and I will play the hymn for my kids, because unfortunately I do play the piano a little, but not enough to successfully do it on the piano. But that is actually how I found my favorite hymn last year. My favorite hymn is Canticle of Turning from the ELW page 723, and it's all about Jesus as a social justice warrior, and the world's about to turn. Change is coming because of Jesus. So I really like this. It's quick, it's easy, but it's meaningful. A lot of the Advent studies I saw in the last few years, again, just are cookie cutter, surface level. If I'm going to take the time to do this, I want it to be meaningful, not just something we're checking out the box. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is the Advent study. So I'm going to actually turn the camera around and give you a closer look at this. So here's a look at it. And again, I had this ordered, came within a week. You can also print copies or just use it on your computer. So it kind of has an introduction on what you'll be looking at, the coming of Christ. And then it has, obviously there's 4 weeks of Advent, so each week has a couple pages to read. It has some reflection questions, and then the second week of Advent, and it follows the same questions. I really do like the discussion questions included. So what it has here is it has different readings for you to do. So my favorite Bibles to use with my kids are these Connect Bible and the Spark Story Bible. I do have a video with my husband. My husband is an ordained pastor in the EELCA. So this is our recommendation. I will link that video up above about why we like this. Specifically, Spark House is what we use for our Sunday school curriculum, and these are the Bibles that this is meant for the younger kids. It's more of a story picture Bible. But I do like, as I talk in that video, how it's more inclusive. Everyone's not starkly white in this. And then this is more the middle school and up. This is what currently my almost 11-year-old is using. So you can see here, and this is the Bible we will use when we talk about these readings. It gives you a list of readings. So Isaiah, go to Isaiah. I have some of these marked already because Advent has already started by the time this video comes out. So we will read that small passage and then read some of the other passages. But again, I really do like this Bible for the teenage crowd. So we'll start by reading the verses. We'll read each of these and then we'll go through this together. This is something you read out loud. And this is talking about the week 1 revelation. So a lot of those readings are about, thunderous moments, God appears. So the first question you're asking yourself this week is, where do we encounter God? And the entire 4 weeks you'll be studying how we encounter God through different revelations, proclamations, things like that. So week 1 focuses a lot, and you can see I highlighted a lot of this because those are the areas I want to emphasize with my children. So this is the first one. As much as Christians are called to love and serve the neighbor, so too are they called to perceive the face of Christ within their neighbor. So what that's talking about, and it talks about in here, is that when you insult someone, when you're mean to someone, when you show hatred to another person, you are showing hatred to God. You're showing hatred to the face of Christ. And I think that is one of the things I really love about these Advent studies is that they don't cookie cut it. They don't sugarcoat it. It's not a pretty little version. It's talking about what's wrong with this world. And a lot of things I think, especially within the Christian faith, that you see is people using it as a means of hatred or bigotry to mask their own bias. And that's not what Christianity is about. And that's one of the reasons I continue to share about my faith on this platform, because just because you're the loudest Christian doesn't mean you're right. I want to share that Christianity can be about love and not hate. And that's exactly what this talks about, that when you're doing those things, when you're treating those who are not Christian badly, you are doing that to the face of Christ. You're doing that to Christ. So I really like how it talks about that. And God continues to be revealed wherever people are in need. Again, that is what we are called to do as Christians, to help those in need. And in salvation, Christ comes to dwell within us, transforming us to reflect the love of Christ in the world. Not hatred, the love of Christ. It's not about how we can bring people to Jesus, but discerning how we can be more fully present with our neighbors, lamenting injustice, confronting human need, reflecting the love of God in service, and recognizing that these are the spaces where God is being revealed every day. So again, I love that message. And then it has some reflection questions. How has God been revealed to you? And what does it mean for a church to shift its attention from uniting people with Jesus to discerning how we can be more fully present with our neighbors? So that's all week 1. And then again, we have Advent week 2, invitation. That's the whole theme for this week. You have your readings. And it's about encountering God through invitation. What are we invited to be a part of? So again, a lot of Advent studies I think are more cookie cutter or a more rose-colored view of things. And I really like that this talks about the pain and suffering that is in the world. It means confronting the stories of pain, fear, and trauma that often are at the root of food and housing insecurity. And so this is talking specifically about housing insecurity, violence against people, and it specifically talks about women in this. And some of the Advent within these has specific stories. And this one has a specific story of a woman who found herself in a situation and needed help with things, and the resources were there to help her. But it's talking about injustice to women a lot, and how women face domestic abuse. 1 in 3 women will face an issue with violence in their life. And it talks about what I really, really appreciate about this is it's calling out Christianity in this, that reality gives the lie to centuries of Christian theology that has counseled women and girls especially to be patient, to quietly abide until the fullness of salvation is realized. Christian writers and preachers have extolled patient suffering as it were some sort of virtue. How often have the virtues of patience and peaceful waiting been exploited to allow violence to continue? I really appreciate that it's calling that part out. That it gives the church community permission to be patient with suffering, to look ahead to the promised future rather than allow the promised future to shape who and how we are in the present. So much of it is looking forward to what the world will be like, when what we are doing right now determines what the future is. Prepare the way of the Lord doesn't mean we just sit around waiting for things to change. It means we are called to be the change in the world. So I really appreciate that. Again, it really has a social justice theme around it, empowering you to change the world. It's an invitation to be honest about the depth of pain and fear in a world and to be driven by that honesty to strive for the justice and peace of the world to come. Actively anticipating and participating in the creation of a new world where all can experience the fullness of security, safety, peace, and justice. Emphasis on the word all there. It's not just saying Christians or the elect or the people who are chosen. It's saying all. We should be working for justice and peace for everybody, not just the ones we think deserve it. Again, that's the Christian message. So you have these reflection questions. And we do talk in our social justice, we talk in our homeschool, it's one of our main topics we cover about. We've talked about food insecurity before, so my children are very aware of that, and I like that it ties into our Advent study this year. And next one is vocation. Again, you have your readings, and this one also has a story within it that reflects the readings. It talks about how often in churches there's a scarcity mindset, and I personally have seen this in a lot. My husband's part of 3 different congregations. He's been a pastor of 3 different congregations. He's going on his 11th year of being a pastor, and a lot of churches focus on the idea of scarcity, what they don't have, or the church is a business, and how can you pay the utility bills? How can you make sure you have enough money? How can you make sure you have people in the pews? How do you get people back in church? Those are all the focuses, that scarcity idea. And that's not what the purpose of church is. The church is called to be a disturbing presence, confronting injustice and violence, a reconciling presence, drawing people together across boundaries that divide us, and a serving presence, advocating for justice and meeting the needs of vulnerable neighbors. That is the purpose right there. And so many times I personally have seen as well, that's not what churches are doing. It's dividing people or treating it as a business. And that's just truly unfortunate, something I struggle with as a Christian, honestly, a lot. And then I do like to include here that one of the things I really like about the ELCA is the inclusive nature of it. So it's talking about in its story about a specific congregation, how they met the needs for the community. It's talking about God's inclusive and universal love. It's talking about family support for the LGBTQ plus community. Not talking about conversion therapy or any of the horrible things associated with that, but talking about universal love, which is so important and something I don't think, especially on this platform, is talked about enough in regards to Christianity. So I really appreciate that it makes a point to talk about that. And it's talking about how this isn't a foolish dismissal of the challenges lying before us or the need we see all around us, including in our congregations. We're called to be disturbing, reconciling, and serving presence in the world. We cannot wait for God's abundance to be made clear before we take steps to become who we are called to be. The world cannot wait, and neither can the church. Again, we are the ones setting the path for the future. The things we are doing now not only affects us and our children, but future generations. And that's why we can't just be patient and sitting around. That's not what we're called to be doing. We're called to bring on the change, the candle of turning. The world is about to turn. Again, reflection questions. And then week 4 is all about proclamation. And this talks about how one of the most important messages I personally find within the Bible, that is, God is not the cause of horrible things, but God is the one with us through those things. He is with us in the good moments in our life and the difficult parts of our life, through economic uncertainty, through violence, through unrest, through pandemics, disasters, through injustice, through hunger and grief. I have been with you wherever you went. The great hope and comfort of Advent is that God has drawn near to humanity in love. You are not alone in your suffering. Does that mean we ignore the suffering and just wait for it to end? No, it means as people, as Christians, we are called to aid in helping end that suffering. And that's the greatest message I think we can have. And I think it's a wonderful topic to be talking about during Advent. The world we lived in is marred by violence, injustice, hunger, thirst, and God comforts us. Yet in our world, we also need to encounter the God who declares that this is not what God intended. These hatred, the bigotry, the violence, all this is not what was intended. That is why we are called within ourselves to make this world a better place. Not just for what we believe is right, but for everybody. The proclamation of Jesus' birth is more than mere words. It is an announcement that, as the popular hymn, Canticle of the Turning, again, that's the one I was talking about, my favorite one, declares, the world is about to turn. Change is coming because of the actions we take. And those are the reflection questions. When have you been comforted by the promise that God is with you? How might the church be a sign of both comfort and protest against unjust systems, structures of the past, and some notes in here. So as you can see, I've already read through this and highlighted some parts I really want to discuss with my kids. But like I've said before, this is a resource I've always been really impressed with. And yes, is it part of my own personal denomination? Absolutely. But of the resources I've seen out there, I love that it's talking about real problems, what we're called to do, inclusive love, like all these things that I think are so important to Christianity. And sadly, the things that aren't being talked about enough, that it's more the hatred side of Christianity that seems to get a lot of attention. And that part bothers me deeply a lot, that's what a lot of people associate with Christianity with, that those people with those loud voices spreading hatred, and that's not what it is. So I really do enjoy this resource. I will link down where you can find these if you'd like to look more, if you'd like to print it out, if you'd like to see the resources for yourself. But this is what I highly recommend and that I use in my house. If you have any specific questions about it, leave them in the comments below. If not, thank you for watching.